Hello, everyone, and welcome back from the break. Our next session we'll be discussing capacity building and connections, amplifying island youth voices for climate ambition and the Sustainable Development Goals. I'd like to invite our moderator for the session, Emily McGlone, the director of Peaceboat.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today at the Island of Hope, COP28 in Dubai. My name is Emily McGlone, Director of Peaceboat US, and it is our great pleasure to be here with all of you today. Thank you so much to the organizing team of Island of Hope for welcoming so many island leaders to this space. Today we have an incredible panel of youth leaders, of ministers, and partners from around the world and many island nations. And to kick us off today, I would like to invite to the stage at the beginning here, Minister of Agriculture Government Representative from Palau, Mr. Stephen Victor, to give a keynote speech. Please give him a warm welcome.
How long do I have? Thank you, Emily, and good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to participate in this event on amplifying youth voices from the islands. And I hope it's not just amplifying the youth voices from the island, but the youth voices globally. I'll share my experience uh, in terms of how I've gotten to where I am and share some insights of how youths in today's very globalized community can help to distill their interest and particularly the information that they need to continue to enhance and build their own capacity as youth leaders and as future leaders of the Pacific as well as leaders from around the world. I grew up wanting to do one thing, and I wanted to serve people. So out of high school, I joined the seminary. I wanted to be a priest because that's where I thought I could serve people. But after 2.5 years, I realized that was not the calling for me. So I continued on my education in marine biology. And growing up in Palau, I didn't really appreciate the nature around me. I didn't know what was nature. I only knew it was a place where we go get fish, where we grow tapioca and taro to feed our families. I didn't know that coral was an animal. I didn't know that the reefs, healthy reefs, provide for healthy fish that we depended upon. So, learning biology gave me the appreciation for the marine life. I didn't know anything about conservation then, nor did I know anything about climate change. It was in 1998 when Palau coral reefs turned white, and I was still a student at the University of Guam. And what I heard from uh, those who were working on coral reef ecosystem in Palau and fishermen were they were asking why the corals turned white, and scientists told them that it was because the sea was warming, and so the coral stressed and the small algae that lived within the corals disappeared. And so fishermen were wondering if they'll ever see the corals come back and the fish come back to their reefs. But then when they attributed the increase in sea surface temperature to global greenhouse gas emissions and to a climate that is changing, then there were a lot of even scientists saying that's not true. So we knew this over 20 years ago that uh, fossil fuel and greenhouse gas emissions was already affecting our island home. But the rest of the world really didn't. Until a few years ago when uh, developed countries started to experience droughts, flooding, famine, and more intense hurricanes, storms, that they've accepted the signs of climate change. But for us, we knew it over 20 years ago because it was affecting our livelihood, our lives. But we had to read this information out of scientific journals. In today's social media, the information is readily available in a very concise and easy to understand to the general public. But while the information is available, there are also not so truthful information. So as a youth, with a lot of information that's available at your fingertip, how do you distill what is right and what is not so right? We've seen in the news that some leaders are questioning the science around facing fossil fuel to keep 1.5 degrees within reach. So if IPCC and other scientific communities have already said so, then what is the other science that is not saying so? So this is the challenge for youth. And how do we distill the right information, and how do we better inform ourselves in taking action, in looking at issues? It's only when you take the time, when you engage with your peers and with mentors, that information can become clearer. So, my message to the youth is don't be afraid to fail. And if you need to fail, fail fast, because that's where you learn. So look at the issues, and you may stand on one issue today, and if you learn, quickly move on and trust the new information that has informed you. Don't get stuck thinking that what you learned then is what is true today, because science continued to improve, knowledge continued to improve, innovation continued to improve the way we do things. And so don't be afraid to fail fast, but learn from it. Don't repeat the same mistake, because it's no longer learning. It's something else. And so I grew up out of college. I used to think very differently than I think today. I used to take a very strong stand on issues. But as I worked with people, and as I began to understand issues, and as I began to engage in the global community, I began to sort of appreciate the need to balance the way I think and engage with others. Because to me, it's how we grow and how we communicate with one another, how we share our experiences, that allows us to then be able to move things forward. We look at climate negotiations. There's almost 200 nations sitting at the table. And sometimes if we come in with a very strong position on issues and unwilling to look at others' perspective, understand their context, then it's difficult for us to have a meaningful conversation. It is why at COP29 we still have not really phased out fossil fuels, even after almost 10 years after nations agree that we need to keep 1.5 degrees within reach, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions is a key component of keeping that within reach. In fact, we hear and we see that more oil and gas exploration licenses are being issued. We've talked about the need for just transition to renewable energy. The technology is there, the innovation is there, the commitment is there, but we have not been able to bring adequate finance to help small island developing state make that just transition. So we hope that as we continue to dialogue, that we can continue to build the political will, because after all, we're here because we care for nature and we care for our youths and our children of tomorrow. How we decide and act today will impact their lives, whether for the better or for the worst. And global stocktake is looking very gloom and doom if COP28 does not deliver and change course of action and phasing out fossil fuel and encouraging more just transition in renewable energy. But for places like Palau, we've made 100% commitment toward renewable energy by 2032. And I hope that's the island of hope that our youths can continue to look toward when global leadership seems to fail them, that there are these island of hopes that we can continue to use as our North Star to continue to build political will within ourselves and within the world to take the action that is a must to address climate change. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister Victor, and I just want to applaud once again the government of Palau for all the steps you're taking towards resiliency, towards education, and inspiration for youth today. And I'm very pleased that we have also a young leader from Palau joining us on our panel. So I'd love to continue and bring up our guest speakers now. So maybe we can start with Kenley coming up from Palau. If you'd like to come take a seat. Everybody, this is Kenley Kenneth, Youth Negotiators Program also from Palau. Give him a round of applause. We also have with us from Trinidad and Tobago, Ms. Khadija Stewart, one of Peaceboat's Ocean and Climate Youth Ambassadors, Youth for SDGs Scholar, Sustainable Ocean Alliance Caribbean Coordinator, as well as a Blue Planet Alliance Global Ambassador, wearing many hats today. We also now have the founder and CEO of Blue Planet Alliance, Mr. Hank Rogers. Please come up to the stage and join us. And we have as well Ms. Anne-Claire Antoinette, Sustainability Lead from the MCB Group. Thank you so much for being here. And Mr. Charlie Bevis from the Climate Youth Negotiators Program. Thank you so much. We know that at COP there's so many incredible events taking place during this 2-week period, and we're just really thankful once again for the Island of Hope for providing us this stage where we can share our partnerships for sustainability and youth empowerment. So here at COP, we have also been organizing various events, speaking about renewable energy, speaking about youth empowerment and engagement, and also civil society action for the United Nations Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. So I'm going to start off with a presentation, first of all, about our organization, Peaceboat US. I'm the director of Peaceboat US in New York City. However, the organization of Peaceboat was founded in Japan in 1983. So we've actually been celebrating our 40th anniversary this year, which is very exciting for us. This is our ship, the Pacific World, which holds 2,000 people traveling around the world, especially visiting many island nations and coastal communities, about 100 ports of call during every global voyage. As we travel, we are promoting socially and environmentally responsible tourism, working with indigenous communities, civil society, NGOs, and governments to make sure that we are working on all levels and including all stakeholders in the conversation. And we believe that travel in itself can be a tool for positive social and political change. And as we're traveling, we are organizing many organized programs in the ports of call with our local partners. It could be beach cleanups or local actions in the coastal areas, mangrove reforestation and study programs, or even just having a cultural exchange through sports and dialogue with local partners. So in each port of call, many people ask us, what are you going to teach on the Peace Boat? And I say, no, we're not going to teach, we're going to learn from the communities that we visit. We also hold special consultative status with the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations. So I'm the director of the US office, which is based in the UN Plaza. We also share our office with Blue Planet Alliance, and we provide opportunities for young people to engage with the United Nations by providing internships and learning experiences, as well as our Youth for the SDGs Scholarship Program, which I'll be sharing with you all today. We also started on board an Ocean and Climate Youth Ambassador Program, where we bring young people from small island developing states or large ocean states to travel with us on board, learning about SDG 14 for life below water. These youth are really the ones on the front lines of climate change and ocean degradation, and their stories and testimonies are the ones that need to be heard the most. So we've been inviting them to engage with governments, the United Nations partners, and to share their testimonies as we travel around the world. Khadija Stewart, who's here with us today, was also an Ocean and Climate Youth Ambassador, so she'll be able to share more about her experience with you all. And this year, we're very proud to present that we have 7 Youth for the SDGs scholars on board our ship who have come here to COP28. They've been traveling with us on board the ship. We had a program this year in the Arctic region, traveling from London to Norway and Iceland, doing citizen science programs and learning about the impacts of climate change. We also had a second program from Panama to Guatemala and Mexico on board the ship. And as Peace Boat is continuing to travel around the world, we'll continue these Ocean Decade programs until 2030 and beyond. So really excited for anyone here at the Island of Hope who is interested to join us on board. We welcome you to apply for our next scholarship program, which is going to be held in Patagonia this year in January, from Chile, sailing through the fjords of Patagonia to Argentina. And part of our work with Peace Boat is always working towards renewable energy. Peace Boat has been working now with Blue Planet Alliance due to the legacy of Blue Planet working in solar energy in Hawaii. And Peace Boat is also creating our next project, which is the Eco Ship. We are creating a ship that will sail with solar and wind power to reduce our CO2 by at least 30%, hoping to be a transition model for the maritime industry and creating a movement of change for all countries and shipping communities around the world. So I'd like to pass over the mic now to Mr. Hank Rogers, founder of Blue Planet Alliance. Please give him a round of applause.
You can applaud afterwards, actually. So why are we here? I mean, why are all of us? Why are 100,000 people have come to Dubai to attend COP28? And the answer is that we have a major problem in the world. It's called climate change or the climate crisis. I don't care what you call it, but it's a problem. And we are here to end or fix climate change. And how do we do this? You know, what's the answer to how do we do this? And I love the United Nations. They bring us the IPCC. They give us the science that we need to make decisions. But in their moment of glory, they passed the Paris Agreement. The question is anybody, first of all, the Paris Agreement doesn't go far enough. And the second of all, nobody's on track for even that. So what do we do and what's the problem? So I started my journey in Hawaii, and I had a near-death experience which gave me my missions in life. And first mission came to me in the back of the newspaper in Hawaii and said, oh, by the way, we're going to kill all the coral in the world by the end of the century. And what's causing that is ocean acidification. What's causing that is carbon dioxide. So then I looked into carbon dioxide. What's going on with carbon dioxide? Well, it isn't just doing ocean acidification. It's giving us climate change or climate crisis. So my mission is to end the use of carbon-based fuel. And to that end, I started a foundation in Hawaii called the Blue Planet Foundation. And we worked to end the use of carbon-based fuel in Hawaii. How do we do that? I had no idea. My background is I'm a computer game designer, so I had no idea how to go about doing this. Well, we talked to the politicians, we talked to the utility, and everybody, the answer was, what are you talking about? We make electricity from oil and coal. $2 billion of oil and $1 billion of coal. It's $3 billion of fossil fuel per year, and we give you 24/7 electricity. And we know how to do this. We've been doing this for years. Why would you want us to change over to something which is new and unreliable and untested? And the answer, of course, that's not true. It is reliable, it is tested. But anyway, we couldn't get anywhere. And how do we move the politicians to actually pass the legislation? And the answer was we went through the children. First of all, we went through the children. We had elementary school children go door to door and exchange 300,000 light bulbs. In that conversation between a child and an adult this is our new light bulb. This will save you money because LED light bulbs is 10 times more efficient than an incandescent light bulb. So it saves you money. Not only that, but it reduces the amount of carbon dioxide that's produced, which is doing the climate change. This conversation is the important conversation. It wasn't the message from the American Medical Association that stopped us smoking. It was our children asking us to stop, please stop smoking. That's what actually worked. So the second thing we did was junior high school students, we had them draw on sidewalks where high tide would be in a 1 meter rise in sea level, which is the minimum rise in sea level predicted by the IPCC. That rise in sea level is caused by the expansion of water as it goes from being colder to being warmer, because warm water takes up more space. But add to that all the water that's coming from the glaciers that were melting in Greenland and everywhere in the world, and we're talking 2 or 3 meters. Waikiki is definitely underwater. Hawaii's tourist industry is definitely underwater. So finally people listened to us. And in 2015, we passed the country's first mandate of 100% renewable energy. In our case, it was 100% by 2045. We wanted 2040. The politicians were ready to give us 2050, and we fought, and we settled for 2045. But my son pointed out to me that 2045 is actually a very interesting date. It's the 100th anniversary of the United Nations. What better date to fix climate change than the 100th anniversary of the United Nations? So I'm thinking about this in a slightly different way. You know, we need a deadline. Without a deadline, nothing ever happens. So suppose I wanted to build a building, the tallest building in the world, and my engineers and my architects say to me, I ask them, when is it going to be done? Well, we hope it's going to be done someday. That's not an answer. The answer is, I want it done by next Christmas or whatever. This is your deadline. And then the engineers and everybody works together and figures out how to do it by then. Without that deadline, we're not going to fix climate change. And I believe 2045 is as good a deadline as any deadline. It's enough time, we figured out in Hawaii, it's enough time for even the electric company, who was totally dependent on fossil fuel, to make the change. And in fact, after we passed the legislation, it was the first time the electric company actually looked at or thought about how to transition to renewable energy. And they came back, and 6 months later they said, you know what, we thought about it, and we looked at it, and we figured it out. We can actually do this by 2040. Great. Okay, so now let's figure out how you're going to actually achieve that. How can we incentivize you to achieve that? So we changed the business model of the utility so they make more money by switching to renewables. guess what? Guess who's our best friend now? They're making more money. We are today already 36% renewable energy in Hawaii. Last year, we ended the last coal-fired power plant. That's $1 billion less right there. This is the answer. The answer is you make a date by which you're going to achieve 100% renewable energy. And we start with, in our case, electricity, because half of the oil and coal that came into Hawaii was going to electricity. A quarter is going to jet fuel, and a quarter is going to ground transportation. Hawaii is a tourist destination. It takes a long plane flight to get there, so we make a lot of jet fuel. But I mean, every island country, or every country has a similar kind of problem. Where does the fossil fuel go? What percent of it is being used for what? So 12 other states have copied our legislation in the US, including California, Illinois, and New York. So that basically, with those 12 states, we've covered half the population of the United States. But the United States, even if we did all of it, is only 4.3% of the people in the world, even though we make 25% of the carbon dioxide. It's only 4.3, and the rest of the world has every right to have our standard of living. And so I thought, how are we going to do this for the rest of the world? Because we won't solve it if we just solve it for the US. So we started the Blue Planet Alliance, and now we're doing the same thing we did in the US, but with island countries and eventually with countries. So what we do is we bring people from island countries to Hawaii, and we show them how we did it in Hawaii, and we teach them how to work together. We bring someone from the government, someone from the utility, and someone from the community. And they come to Hawaii this is a month ago. We brought in Palau, Tonga, Tuvalu, Micronesia, American Samoa, Guam, Northern Marianas, and the Cayman Islands. We will do this every 6 months until everybody in the world has sent us their people, and we've shown them how to do this. So what's the answer? The answer is you set a deadline, and you don't hope that it's going to happen. You make sure that it happens. People ask me if I have hope. I said, no, I do not have hope. I have determination. I know that we are going to solve climate change. We have the technology. We have the money. I mean, all these countries have pledged for this money. I know it's not moving, but we've got the money. It's not like it doesn't exist. What we're missing is the willpower. And the willpower starts with people. It's the united people that are going to solve this. We are going to stop climate change. We are going to demand this change from our politicians, and we're going to solve climate change by 2045.
All right, round of applause for Mr. Hank Rogers and the Blue Planet Alliance. You can see from the photo above, look at all the incredible island leaders who were in Hawaii recently for the fellowship program. And I think that's a testament to the energy and the positive movement of Blue Planet, allowing island leaders to learn from their successes, but also helping to encourage capacity building and training. And with that, we have our youth program. Blue Planet Alliance has launched a Global Ambassadors program. So next, I'd like to pass the mic to Ms. Khadija Stewart, who is also a Blue Planet Alliance Global Ambassador, as well as I mentioned, one of our youth scholars, and we're really excited for her to be here today. So Khadija, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Emily, and hi everyone. Like Emily mentioned, my name is Khadija and I am from Trinidad and Tobago. I am an Ocean and Climate Youth Ambassador, Youth for the SDGs Scholar, Caribbean Regional Rep at Sustainable Ocean Alliance, the founder of EcoVibes Environmental Creatives, and the list goes on. But Emily, I think we could jump into the presentation right now. So in 2019, I was introduced to the Ocean and Climate Youth Ambassador program, and I thought, wow, this program looks absolutely amazing. Is this something that I could do? Is this something I could be a part of? I wasn't 100% sure, but then I was like, you know what? I might be scared, I might not think I know enough, but go forward, do it. It's an opportunity to learn, and you might not have an opportunity like this again. So I signed up, and I was absolutely blown away. It was 8 youth from other small island developing states, and you know, sometimes living on an island and like being from the Caribbean, sometimes you tend to think that this is your problem and your problem alone. And having that space to connect with people from like Tuvalu, from Fiji, and understanding that like we are not in this fight alone. There's so many other islands also experiencing the issue of rising sea levels, the issue of coral bleaching, the issue of the impact of like increased storms, etc. And learning from them and seeing like what strategies and what technologies they have been putting in place and how we could replicate that in the Caribbean. And this is a space that I think without Peace Boat, we would not have the opportunity to connect. And you know, sometimes you join these programs and it's like, okay, you come, you have a good time, bye, it was nice. But that is absolutely not the case with Peace Boat. As I said, I joined in 2019. We're now in 2023, yes? And here I am, still working with Peace Boat, still sharing my voice. And this was one of the few times I really realized that as youth, we have a power, we have a voice, we could use it, and this is how you could go about using it. And I think I love Peace Boat so much that I stayed, and then I decided to join the Youth for the SDGs Scholarship Program, which was this year, and we sailed in Panama, throughout Latin America, ended in Mexico. And again, like really being hands-on with the communities, learning about sea turtle conservation, learning about mangroves, learning about all these different things, and understanding how best we could really incorporate some of these solutions with each other. And again, like creating a space for young people to be able to amplify their voices is something that is so powerful, and it's something that people often don't think about, because as youth we face so many different barriers. You know, just something like even understanding the power of your voice. In Trinidad we have a saying that like children must be seen and not heard. So from small you learn to silence yourself, and from small you'll be like, they tell you, adults are speaking, please leave the room, this is not for you, you can't have a say here. And you know, so like I said, we have been programmed to be silent. And coming to programs like this is where you really understand the power that you hold, and that, wait a minute, I can do this, I can speak up, I can call out the government, I can come up with solutions. And then how can I continue to share that space with other people so that they too can understand their superpower? And that is something that I think Peace Boat does an absolutely amazing opportunity at, and creating spaces for people to share and raise their voices. And you know, we have partnerships, SDG 17, which is crucial, and that's how I became involved with Sustainable Ocean Alliance, and this is how I became involved with Blue Planet Alliance. And there's a lot of talk about moving away from fossil fuels, etc. And yesterday, the government of Trinidad, this is the Prime Minister and the Minister of Energy, is in London with the executive at BP, signing new agreements to continue moving the fossil fuel industry. And it's just like, guys, you all need to understand that we can't keep moving this forward. This is not the way. And being from the islands, suffering from the impacts of climate change, to me, it just seems absolutely wild. You know, like, Trinidad is on fire, we're burning, our coral reefs are bleaching at alarming rates because of these temperatures. Yet still, we have people signing new agreements to continue moving the industry forward. And that is why it's so important for us to be able to understand our voices, for us to join programs like Blue Planet Alliance and continue moving. And with that, that's why I decided to start my organization, Eco Vibes, to help share stories, to use things like art, storytelling, blogs, children's book, you name it, everything, to just get the information out there so people could really be empowered and really see what is happening from a different lens. Because reading the IPCC report could be extremely depressing and all these other things, but looking at, you know, a piece that speaks to you, or a sound or a poetry or something within the creative element, it has a way of opening your thinking and opening your understanding. And that's one of the reasons why I really choose to focus on the power of stories to drive change within the region. And I think that's it for me.
Thank you, Khadija. And if you're interested in learning more about Eco Vibes or Khadija's work, she has her podcast. You can find it online, and you can follow her and follow her stories here, because she's interviewing Caribbean youth at COP28 and sharing their stories as well. So thank you, Khadija, for not only enjoying the platforms that are given to you and taking advantage, but creating platforms for more youth, which is something that we hope all of our youth will continue to do. So really proud of all your work. And there's another youth program that we're going to mention today. This is our Climate Youth Negotiator program, actually, Kenley. We're going to, kind of pass the mic to both of you. But, Charlie and Kenley are both from this program. And Charlie has joined us today for the first time. So really excited to learn about the program. Why don't you start, by sharing a bit about what you're working on and how many youth you have here at COP, because it's pretty impressive. So, Charlie, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's very exciting. So, hi everyone. My name is Charlie, and I am the Advocacy Support Officer for the Climate Youth Negotiator Program. And Kenley is one of our Climate Youth Negotiators here. So, to give you an overview of the program, what we do is that we train young people from around the world, every region of the world, to be able to come to the UNFCCC negotiations and be able to actually take part in the negotiations alongside their party delegations. And this year we have 120 of our delegates here, which means that the Climate Youth Negotiator Program delegation, if you can call us that, is bigger than most national delegations, which is quite exciting to think about the impact that we're having. So to give you an understanding of where the program came from, I think it's good to go back to the genesis of this idea, which is that one of our co-founders, Marie Claire Graf, who maybe some of you know, she seems to know everyone at the COP. But so she was once Switzerland's youngest youth negotiator, about 5 years ago. And that was because she had been doing some activism in Switzerland, and she got a call from the government asking her if she wanted to take that to the next level and go to COP. And she obviously jumped at the chance to do that because it's, a bigger impact to come to these international negotiations, to take your activism beyond what you can do locally or nationally to the global stage where agreements are happening to respond to the global climate crisis. However, when she got here, she was sad to realize, one, the lack of young people in the negotiating space. Often she was the only young person in the room. And also how excluded she was from the negotiations, which is twofold. One, in the sense that the UNFCCC negotiations are extremely technical and complex, not only what you are negotiating, but also the way that you are negotiating. There is a whole process of how interventions are structured, how the agreements come together, the process, there's formals, informal informals, etc. And if you aren't clued into this, it's all completely alien. And if you don't have the skills to be able to engage with that process, you're not going to be able to. And that's what she realized. And she saw that there was a need for young people to be given the proper skills to be able to come and meaningfully engage in this process. And our whole mission is about intergenerational justice, because we know that young people are the people that will deal with the most severe consequences of the climate crisis, and they'll be dealing with those consequences for the longest. And also, we are representing future generations as the generation ourselves that is closest in proximity to those that are not yet here. So we feel that we have a responsibility as well to be advocating for those not yet born. So that's where our mission comes from, bringing young people into this space and giving them the skills to meaningfully engage and also bring more ambitious climate proposals and push the negotiations forward. So our approach takes two forms. On one side, we have our training. So we engage young people from around the world, focusing on those from the global south and island states where the consequences of the climate crisis are being felt most severely. And we have a program of about 6 months where we bring in those who are most experienced in these UNFCCC proceedings to talk to the youth negotiators. So we have special rapporteurs coming. Cristina Figueres led one session, and we're really focusing on the very, very technical and practical skills you need to be able to engage here. Because Marie Claire found that when she was a youth negotiator, and it's often the case that delegations do this, that they'll give a couple days prep training for someone that they're sending to COP to sort of have a ground for what they need to do and understand what's happening at the negotiations. And that's simply not good enough to be able to meaningfully participate. So we curated a program of 6 months, and the idea being that we can take anyone, and by the time that you've gone through our program, you are fully able to come to COP, understand the track that you're negotiating, and really make an impact. And that means that where previously young people might be put on tracks that were deemed less risky, like, for example, ACE or gender, now, because they have the means, the skills, the knowledge to be able to take part. They're able to engage with finance, mitigation, adaptation, loss and damage, which are some of the most watched tracks, and also where the most key progress needs to happen in terms of tackling the causes and effects of the climate crisis. So that's one side, our very, very coherent training program, partnering with leading experts at the UNFCCC who understand this process. And the second half is that we sign memorandums of understandings with our partner countries. So we're now partnered with 54 countries. A quarter of all the countries in the world are partnered with us, which is very exciting to think about. And part of that memorandum of understanding is about making sure that the young people truly have access to be able to make a difference. So they have to be given a badge to get into the blue zone, of course, but also be given a mandate to actually speak in the negotiations. So they're not just there as a token youth to sit at the back so a country can say that they took 2 young people to COP. They have to actually be speaking, they have to be intervening, they have to be putting their thoughts and their perspective into this process and being heard in the room. So that is the 2 strands of our program. And we are going from progress to progress. We were able to bring 58 youth negotiators last year. And this year, as I say, we have 120, which means that if we were to continue growing at the speed we are now, by the time India hosts COP in COP33, we would be the largest delegation, or we would be larger than any national delegation, which is very exciting. Youth are taking over. We firmly believe that. And just to bring it back to capacity building really quickly, because I think that's important as well. I've already spoken a bit about the focus that we put on the very, very specific skills that you need to be able to participate in the UNFCCC, because it's not just negotiation skills, it's understanding this process specifically. It's also about building the network between countries, because often countries are approaching the UNFCCC negotiations in a silo. They train as their own national delegation. And we've completely flipped that on its head, because we bring people together from these 54 different countries, and they spend months training together, building really close friendships and networks between them, so they're good friends before they've ever stepped into a negotiating room. And we see the impact of that in terms of the dialogues that we see being created in the room. And also, I think I was touching on what Khadija said, in terms of building that network between countries is so important, both in the negotiation room, but also outside, because it's important that young people who will be these future climate leaders are understanding the impacts of the climate crisis in other states, understanding where there are similarities and points that they can push together to build progress. And that's happening not only between island states, but also between every region of the world in which we have youth negotiators coming from. And finally, we build a community at COP. It's not just that once we get here, we lead them to their national delegations. We're checking in every day. We do daily debriefs and exercises every day. We have a community of welfare team checking in on the negotiators. And I think part of capacity building is also building up resilience and ensuring that the youth negotiators are able to go into this process, and not only with the skills to make that impact, but also being built up and supported throughout the process to be able to make that impact as well. So there's lots of strands of capacity building coming in. And we're seeing the impact. We're hearing stories every day where in one track or another, there's 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 maybe of our negotiators in the room. And they're having conversations between themselves, which are bringing their countries together and progressing the negotiations in a way that wouldn't have happened without them being in the room. So that is a little bit about our program, the exciting work we're doing, the scale of our growth, and also the nature of our impact. And I'm very, very grateful for being given the opportunity to come and explain that to you here today. Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations, Charlie, and all the Youth Negotiators program. We've known them from the beginning, I'd say, when Mary Claire and Sophie and others were starting it, and I think that's really a testament to how many young people also want to be in the space and want to learn and want to share. And also their education around the 6-month training period is crucial to negotiations. Like you said, there are a lot of country delegates that need the extra training and support. And that network of youth, I think, shows that young people are willing to collaborate and to bring their government representatives to the table to make sure that there's that intercultural, inter-community, regional, and national, collaboration. So thank you so much for facilitating that. I think the future will thank you. So we appreciate it. Thank you so much. And to bring young leaders like Kenley here as well. So Palauan youth, we know, are very strong in their commitments to nature-based solutions and conservation. And Kenley has participated on so many stages. So I'd love to just hear a little bit more about your story and what brought you here today.
So one of my favorite pastimes as a child was watching my aunties bend and twist coconut leaves into these beautiful woven baskets. While they were weaving, they would give me unsolicited advice on life, and they would gently scold me and talk to me about everything I've needed to know from a young age up until adulthood. These sayings are rooted in culture, rooted in tradition, and rooted in our heritage. So in the Republic of Palau, I like to think that the youth lead the way, but it's the hands of the elders that guide us. So as you can see here, this beautiful Palauan woman is weaving. And one of the things I love to do is just sit down, listen to them gossip, and listen to them talk, and listen to what lessons they have to share amongst each other that I, as a young person, can learn. So as Emily mentioned, my name is Kenley Kenneth, and I am a youth negotiator, a product of the Climate Youth Negotiators program. And I'll be talking a little bit about the Republic of Palau and our initiatives back home that is cultivating youth through our culture. So a little bit of context, not to bore everyone, but I'll give everyone a little bit of a geographical background on where I'm from and where the minister is from as well. The Republic of Palau is the most beautiful Pacific island in the region, located in the westernmost area of the Pacific, located right next to the Philippines. We have a population of about 18,000 people, and although we're not quite large in terms of our land size, in terms of our ocean area, we're the size of France. So we are an ocean people. It's very important, and our environment is very, very integral within our culture and our tradition. Next slide. The president recently signed that this year is the year of children and the year of youth. So we're investing in the youth in ways we've never seen before. So I'm so excited to announce that throughout the year, we've implemented with partners such as Taiwan, a $350,000 small grants projects. So you can see all over the island nation, we have a bunch of young people who are leading initiatives and leading projects that are in coordination with the Palau government. And as you can see here, we have these beautiful children who are all products of these cultural awareness programs, climate change awareness programs that are very important in not only like advocating for our culture and our youth, but also making sure that from a young age we're exposed to the climate change impacts that are literally in our backyard. So in addition to that, we have our traditional government initiatives. The Republic of Palau has what I would like to say as two systems, the national government and the traditional government. The traditional monarch, our chief monarch, has her dancers called the Little Dragonflies, and they're our best dancers in the Republic of Palau, and they dance like the Lalangaloy, which is like the women's dance. We have the boys who dance the Rook dance, which is the men's war dance. And we love to showcase our culture because we as a people like to talk about how in Palau we have two sayings, Amasay Adalatalid and Atao Padamad, which refers to the taro patch as our mother and refers to the ocean as our father. So we're all kind of the children of our environment. And I'd also like to recognize that my minister and her staff are here, so we're all Palau's children, even though I'm the youngest person. But yeah, increasing local NGOs are also expressing an impact in youth. So you can see that, I'm not sure if it's in the side, but we talk about like how a lot of tourists come into Palau and they get to have the opportunity to dive and see our marine sanctuary, our marine environment, but how many youth are actually being involved? Unfortunately, not really. So through these local initiatives, we're teaching youth how to dive, we're teaching youth the importance of our marine ecosystem environment, and this is all done through our Palauan culture and our Palauan tradition. Just to talk to you a little bit about our culture, I want to just advocate for Palau's environment and how we're really leading the way for like youth and traditions within the Pacific. Women forward, matrilineal society based on women and women's rights and how the youth are very important and pillars in our society, and how our traditional chiefs and our cultural traditions such as Bai are sort of like telling love letters of our like cultural traditions in preserving a natural environment, which is so important to not only Pacific islands like Palau, but for small island developing states all across the world. And with that, I'd like to just say, due to time constraints, thank you so much for your attention. And Masulang, I'd love to chat more about our initiatives back home when you have the time.
Thank you, Kenley. No, it's wonderful to see the initiatives Palau is leading, especially in the Pacific. And since the Our Ocean Conference was held in Palau, we've been engaging much more with many youth there. And the Peace Boat also visits Palau often. So we're hoping to return again in the coming years and look forward to hosting everyone on board. So thank you so much for being here, Kenley. Wonderful. And then next, I'd like to pass it over to Annie, if you would like to share a little bit more about your work with the MCB group and what you're working on for sustainability.
Yeah, thank you for giving us this opportunity to share about what we do in Mauritius. So I'm Anne-Claire from MCB Group in Mauritius. We're a bank that's been established 185 years ago in Mauritius, and since then we've spread out in the Indian Ocean. So we've got banks in Madagascar, Seychelles, and the Maldives. And of course, when we talk about sustainability, our role as a bank, our main contribution is to provide the finance, to finance the sustainable projects. So that's what we work on. But also, we feel that as a financial institution, it's our responsibility, our role to inspire, to influence the stakeholders around us. And we really make a point of contributing to raising awareness on climate change in the island. So, for instance, we publish reports, we organize conferences, workshops for our clients to help them get a better understanding of climate change. And how do we also involve the youth? It's through different channels. So for example, we support different national non-governmental organizations that work in biodiversity conservation, reforestation programs. And through the partnerships we establish with them, we focus on their educational programs. So really, we finance their school programs where they go in schools and teach the youth about climate change and impact on environment in our country. And another aspect as well is that we thought that it's really important that in Mauritius we can hear the voice of the youth more on these subjects and that they have the power to influence the society at large. So as a banking institution, we created a debate competition for the youth. So it's an inter-school debate competition that we've started this year. And it was a way for us to give a platform to the youth to express their opinions on climate change and also to envision the future that they want. And as the Minister of Palau said earlier, it was really important for us for these debates to be grounded in science. So we provided them with training from an IPCC author, Dr. François Gémen, and we also provided them with research documents and helped them to get really used to doing research, analysis, and developing their critical thinking skills so that they could produce debate and arguments that were really at a level that were scientifically correct, but also easy to understand for the layman. And we chose to do these debates in Creole. Well, in Mauritius, our official language is English. A lot of us speak French most of the time, but the mother tongue is Creole. And everything that we do on the island is mainly officially in English. But so that it's very rare that the youth have a platform where they can express themselves in their mother tongue. And for us, it was really important as a means to convey the messages to the wider audience, to the population, because we had the debates broadcast on the national television, so it was a way as well for us to have the messages passed across through the whole population. And of course, being young people at school, they really enjoyed the opportunity to become influencers for the community. Through the debates on television or social media campaigns that we run, they were seen as climate advocates. They've become influencers in their communities, for their peers, their classmates, and it was really a way for them to get engaged on these subjects. And one of the hopes that we have for this competition, that will be a regular meeting for the youth, is that it can ignite a spark in those who want to one day be youth leaders like those around me, and that they really feel that working on climate change is something that concerns us all, and we need all to be part of this journey, and that there's so much joy, happiness, and hope to have when you're working on this. I see only happy people around me, and that's what we want the youth to know as well, is that you can have a career, you can do so many great things, and at the same time solving the biggest crisis that we have to face as humanity.
Thank you so much. Yes, give her a round of applause, everyone. It's true. You are surrounded by happy people, I have to say. Our youth delegation, along with those of the climate negotiators and others, I think we're all very positive, and I think that's important for the climate action movement. We always talk about things in a way of action and taking the next steps rather than looking at the negative things that are happening in the world, which we're all aware of, the current impacts of climate change and ocean degradation. So we're really always looking with our Youth for the SDGs program, as well as Blue Planet Alliance, Global Ambassadors, and how we can take action. What can we do next? How can we bridge the gaps? Where are the financial, missing steps? And what can we do to fill those in? And how can we be a contributor to these programs? So I was really pleased that this year, Peace Boat's Youth for the SDGs program was officially endorsed by IOC UNESCO as an Ocean Decade program, as a contribution. And we really plan to continue hosting youth on board our ship, bringing more Blue Planet Alliance global ambassadors to Hawaii and around the world, and continuing these dialogues here on stages like this at the Island of Hope today and other stages across COP. We have just a few moments left, so I'm going to ask maybe one final wrap-up question. But before we do that, I'd like to open it up to the audience. Maybe if there's one or two questions, we can field those into the stage. And I'd like to start with Mr. Neon Murray, who's here in the front from Trinidad and Tobago. Also happens to be one of our Youth for the SDG scholars. Thank you for being here, Neon.
Hi everyone, my name is Neon Murray from Trinidad and Tobago, CEO of Nizas Energy, and I was also on the Latin American voyage of the SDG program. So I have a question towards the Pacific youth and the Caribbean youth. How can we work together to show our governments that, you know, we are the future of sustainable change?
Okay, I guess I'll go first. Caribbean will go first. Yeah, so, well, something that I mentioned earlier was that having access to different spaces. So, like being on the Peace Boat, and for us, being there with youth from the Pacific as well. So, like I mentioned, Palau, Fiji, Tuvalu, etc., and all these other different youth coming together in capacity building programs, sharing knowledge and developing solutions. Like that is strong in itself. That knowledge exchange, and that would not have been possible if we weren't in these spaces. And then carrying that back to our governments and trying to push and trying to lobby and trying to move their decisions in the right direction. And sometimes, you know, well, as youth, especially from the Caribbean, we face a lot of barriers. That is being able to have these conversations, that is being able to have access to information, something as simple as funding, all these different, the list goes on, right? And it's very easy to get discouraged, and it's very easy to say, well, okay, I don't want to do this anymore, or this doesn't make sense. Let me go and be an architect instead. Let me go and do something else. The climate is doomed, etc. But a lot of times I tell people, like, in finding your superpower, one of the best things you could do for yourself is, if you don't have a seat at the table, build your own table. Like, get the tools, get everything else, build your own table, and invite other people to come to it if they don't want to have you there. And then try and use those different spaces, those different avenues to try and shift and move the change that we so desperately need to see.
Thank you, Khadija. I like that. Build your own table, create spaces for other youth, and that's exactly what you've been doing as well. Kenley, how about you?
Just to build on Khadijah's point, I heard one thing which I really love. If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So I feel as though that's a very important point, because as youth, we often are overlooked until we have powerful and efficient partners. So I would say that it's all about making and establishing meaningful partnerships with institutions that are invested and interested in youth. So me in particular, I'm quite lucky to be working with a government that cares so much investing in the future generation. But I would say that partnering with NGOs or organizations such as Blue Planet Alliance, which has, or so far as I've heard, like really put the amount of time and effort into making sure that the youth are included and investing in the youth moving forward in their careers, I think that's one of the best ways we can address climate action and, you know, address climate change. Yeah.
Thank you, Kenley. Wise words. And so we had a question just behind there as well, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Dr. Claire Nelson, and I am involved in both futures thinking and sustainability literacy. I'm very interested in finding out, how are you including the capacity for futures thinking in your training? And are you? If not, how can we work with you to get that as part of the training? And the Caribbean youth, I will speak to them offline, because I'm actually quite discouraged with what I've been finding out, trying to work with them over the last couple of years. Perhaps these two people here will make a difference. But so far, I've found that, to be quite honest, in the Caribbean, it's very hard. There's no funding. And the truth about many small island states, at least in the Caribbean, is that to make change is challenging, because the status quo does not really want to move. And the intergenerational dialogue is not there. I have tried as an older person to reach out to youth, but it's not working. So I'm not sure if I'm not meeting the right young people who will go beyond the discouraged space. And so perhaps these two here I'm seeing today might make me feel like there's hope, because right now I'm not seeing any. But on the issue of futures, I really would like to see how can I help organizations like Peace Boat and your program ensure that we have futures literacy as one of the skills that the young people are being exposed to.
Thank you so much. And yes, I think the young people in this room are going to give you hope. So we can start with Khadija and maybe pass it on to Charlie as well to talk a bit about, how you're including youth for the future thinking.
I am so sorry. First of all, let me apologize on behalf of the young people that you've met that has discouraged you a little bit. But I do think that a lot of us, unfortunately, because we've been trying to reach out and to try and move this into generational dialogue, that it has not been going anywhere, or we've met people that listen to us for 5 minutes and it's just like, okay, yes, I'll follow up with you, and then you never hear from them again. So you definitely feel discouraged, and we are very skeptical when people reach out to us. And is that being able to find the people that truly want to help us move, that in itself is very difficult. But something that I've been trying to do is, a lot of people reach out to me, and then when they do that, it's about creating spaces for everybody to have that conversation. So with the podcast, or with, for example, I had a program called Thinking Beyond the Tides, and it was about bringing leaders in the region, elderly leaders in the region who were willing to share, who were willing to connect with young people, and then bringing the youth who had an open mind, who were also willing to listen into the same space, so that we could understand that, hey, this is some of the problems, and this is how we could move forward, and this is why we can't keep operating like we need to. We have to put, like you mentioned, the future planning, all these different things into play. And in the region, we have a way of designing things for right now, and it's never a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, a 20-year plan. It's like, this is what we need right now. And how do we get beyond that thinking? And that's something that, like I mentioned, with Thinking Beyond the Ties, that I've been trying to do to get people to see past that. So, yeah.
Thank you. And Charlie, just a few seconds left, but feel free to, use the time for your answer.
Yeah, just very briefly. I'll also say that I'm sorry for these youth that you have met who haven't encouraged you, but I would really invite you to come along to one of our daily debriefs that we do every day, where we as young people come together and we talk about our progress, we talk about our next steps, and we share these ideas between each other and between older people of other generations that come along to join those discussions. So in all seriousness, we can speak afterwards, and I would love you to come along. But intergenerational thinking does require a shift, like a paradigm in the way that you approach problems. And that is as much for younger people as it is for older people, because as I believe Khadija said about young people needing to believe themselves that they can be advocates, but also needing to understand that when we're tackling these problems, they should also be listening to older people as well and engaging them in dialogue, learning from their elders, learning from the wisdom that they have as well. And I think it requires a sort of shift on both sides, that maybe young people that you've reached out to maybe don't have that appreciation for the value that you have in that conversation as well. And then to touch on the futures part, I would just say that's something that we do implement into our training, but it's certainly something that we could be doing more of, as it's so fundamental to the ethos of our program, which is about not only advocating, as I say, for young people now, but also those to come as well, and building those structures and frameworks to make sure that our impact lasts beyond COP, beyond the program, building permanent structures. And our training program is constantly evolving. We're only in our 2nd year, so we're always open to new ideas, new inputs. And again, that's, I'm sure, a conversation we can have.
All right, everyone, round of applause one more time for our speakers.
I'd just like to say that, you mentioned that there are young people that are not listening or that are not interested. I would like to say that's the same thing for us adults. There's plenty of us out there who are just not listening and not moving, when we should obviously be listening and moving. So what we need to do, and I think that's what this whole gathering at COP is for us to get together and find out who the people are that are actually going to make this happen. Because it starts with us, and we will make this happen. We are going to fix climate change. That's what we do.
All right, let's do this. Round of applause, everyone. Thank you so much. Well, thank you again to the organizers of Island of Hope. It's been so wonderful to be here on this beautiful stage, and congratulations for bringing so many island voices to COP28. So I'd like to ask all the speakers to stand, and we can take maybe one speaker photo, and we'll pass the mic over. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.